the wharf on Saturday. Now, we must go back in time a mere 1,000 years. Well, it's nothing, really. The 1,000-year-old Exeter book, funnily enough, is based in Exeter, but it is still causing fascination. And the people we're about to hear from, Matthew Hammond and S.V. Wolfland, insist that it has as much resonance today as it has ever had. They're both poets. They travel under the name of Widsith and Deor.
They're not both.
And funnily enough, those poets feature in the Exeter book as well. Let's find out some more about it.
We're storytellers,
well, not
not
only
poets.
because it's so old and so beautiful, but because it just, the poetry in it just hasn't dated at all. I mean, it has got a huge collection or selection of things in it, like saints' lives and a bit of bestiary and theological works and words of wisdom. But the riddles and the elegies are just massively modern. They just haven't dated at all.
It's very often for poetry or written stuff that's very old, is that it feels old. And the Exeter book particularly has certain poems called the elegies that actually don't feel old. They feel like they could have been written yesterday.
Now, I'm surprised to hear you say this because, I mean, fundamentally, this book is 1,000 years old, and the world 1,000 years ago was very different from this world that we inhabit today. So how has it retained its contemporary resonance?
In a strange way, it became contemporary again at the beginning of the 20th century, because kind of modern poetry where you freed up the number of syllables in a bar and you changed the kind of the rhythmic structures was deliberately drawn from Saxon poetry. They were using it.
Yeah, people were starting to get really excited about the alliterative nature and the rhythmic and the speech nature rather than this kind of constricting rhyming couplet structure.
So in a strange way, it actually became more relevant a while ago, and so it feels very vibrant now.
Now, I can understand that in terms of the rhythms returning and speech patterns, because obviously there's something, I suppose, anatomical fundamentally about that.
Definitely.
But in terms of content and the actual subject matters that are spoken about, can they really still matter to us 1,000 years on?
Definitely, because the Wanderer and the Seafarer, for instance, are poems of exile, and anybody, sort of anybody who's sort of a refugee or in a war-torn situation or in a civil war situation, or indeed in the recent floods, for instance, people, sort of that have to sort of be going by boat from their homes. I mean, it's got so much to say. It captures all the grief and sort of the moving nature of that and the heart-rending sort of like emotions that you go through. And the love poems are the same, sort of a separation and sort of really deep emotion. And the ruin is incredible simply because it deals with time, how we feel about the past. And it's just exactly how we would feel about the past. And there are they looking at these Roman ruins that were already ancient then, although much more ancient now. And that's just phenomenal.
And the thing about particularly the love poetry, it has the two only female voices in 1,000 years. And they're describing very modern situations. So the woman, her husband's gone away for a long time in The Wife's Lament, and she's very sad about it and writing out her sadness. And the ruin was very deliberately trying to capture something about time.
Okay, well, shall we hear a little bit of the capturing of time then?
Oh, this is magnificent, the ruin. Bright were the buildings, halls where springs ran, high, horn-gabled, much throng noise. These many mead halls men filled with loud cheerfulness. Weird changed that. Came days of pestilence on all sides, men fell dead, death fetched off the flower of the people where they stood to fight, waste places and on the Acropolis ruins. Hosts who would build again shrank to the earth, therefore are these courts dreary, and that red arch twists tiles wry, from roof ridge reaches groundwards broken blocks. There once many a man, mood-glad, gold bright of gleams garnished, flushed with wine pride, flashing war gear, gazed on wrought gemstones, on gold, on silver, on wealth held and hoarded, on light-filled amber, on this bright burg of broad dominion, stood stone houses wide, streams welled hot from source and a wall, all caught in its bright bosom that the baths were hot at hall's hearth, that was fitting. Thence hot streams loosed ran over Horsestone unto the ring tank. It is a kingly thing, a city.
Fabulous, thank you so much. Why are we talking about a book of words? written 1,000 years ago. Was this poetry not for the most part spoken rather than written?
It was, yes, it certainly was.
That's why it's got the kind of the rhythm forward. It's a very oral kind of feel to it.
So it would have been copied by monastic scribes, but I mean, there was quite a lot of writing around it. It was just mainly to do with the church and monasteries and histories and stuff. So what's so unusual about the Exeter book is it's actually got these secular, if you like, sort of poems from a total other side of the culture.
I can hear the passion that both of you have for this. Is your mission, in some ways, to reinvent it and to make it available for an audience today?
Absolutely.
Well, yes, to draw people's attention to it, because it is still neglected, even though it's probably more widely known now, and not just amongst scholars, but it is still so neglected and still so... Not enough people visit the Exeter book, which is in Exeter Cathedral Library. You can actually go and see it for free. Okay, it is under a glass case, but you still get sort of waves of history and magic, if you like, coming off it with a beautiful ancient script, probably by a single hand.
Widsith and deor, otherwise known as Matthew Hammond and S.V. Wolfland, talking about the 1,000